Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, the channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Absolute radio silence from the media. You would expect this story to be a headline everywhere you look. The left is constantly going on about gun crime and gun violence. They're constantly lecturing you about how important black life is, Black Lives Matter. What about violence against women? Or of course their favorite talking point, political extremism. Those topics of discussion only ever matter when it can be used to attack the right. When it happens the other way around, when a Republican is the target or the victim, friggin' radio silence. Not a single, literally not a single mainstream cable outlet, not a single national news source is covering this story. Only local small affiliates. Apparently it's not a big enough story for them to even report on. What is that story, you may ask? A black female New Jersey Republican councilwoman was just assassinated in a targeted attack. There could possibly be a political motive. We don't exactly know yet, we don't have the facts yet, but you would think that this would be the #1 story nationwide, and I swear I'm not lying to you when I say not a peep, not a care in the world. Could you imagine if we changed one specific element of this woman's identity? Could you imagine if she was a New Jersey Democrat council member? What we would be hearing. The mainstream media double standard once again is on full display, and let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so let me first make the point. I searched on YouTube, New Jersey Republican council member, and you can see some outlets are reporting the story. One is from Live Now Fox, another from Fox 5 New York, and that's it. 2 Fox affiliates cover the story, everything else is completely outdated. The networks that continue to fearmonger about political extremism and the threat public figures and politicians face, the networks that continue to tell you how much they care about black life, don't even care enough to report on the story. Now what exactly happened? Well, here's the context from Live Now from Fox.
You might have heard already this horrible event today of this local elected council member in New Jersey, a young political leader who was found shot and killed outside of her home. Let's get an update on this story from Fox 5 New York reporter Ashley Rodriguez. She's standing by, I believe, outside of the scene. Ashley, this is so horrific. How did this happen? What more do we know?
Well, it's been nearly 24 hours since the shooting, and for this quiet neighborhood, it's been quite an active day. Police have still been on location searching for a suspect. Once they find that suspect, they hope to get a motive behind that. But I'm standing in front of the council member's house, and this is where she was trying to go last night around 7:30 when she was ambushed by a shooter, hit with a barrage of bullets. Her car rolled down this hill, slamming into that Mercedes-Benz. By the time police arrived, it was too late.
A vicious, violent, deadly ambush targeting a political figure, a Republican councilwoman in New Jersey. What's being reported as a targeted attack. Here's an article from the Conservative Brief. Quote, targeted attack. New Jersey Republican found dead from gunshot wounds. A New Jersey Republican council member has been murdered in what has been described as a targeted attack. Councilwoman Eunice Dwumfor of Sayreville, New Jersey was shot and killed outside of a residence on Wednesday. Police say they believe the Republican councilwoman, a Newark native, was the intended target of the shooting, but we do not have a clear motive. And of course, in a situation like this, I never want to jump to conclusions. We're not going to do what the left does and make some bold claim without any evidence whatsoever, trying to pin it on the current president. Oh, it's Joe Biden's rhetoric and calls to violence. Of course, we're not going to do that, but it's another deadly act of violence targeting a conservative. It's clearly newsworthy, regardless of whether or not we have all of the facts. And could you imagine what the left would be saying if she was a Democrat? It would directly be Donald Trump's fault. It'd probably be Paul Gosar's fault for tweeting that stupid meme involving Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Obviously, they'd push the same sort of race-baiting nonsense. Could you imagine if a black Democrat councilwoman lost her life in a targeted attack, what the narrative in the mainstream media would be? And it's not a hypothetical. I'm not assuming or jumping to conclusions here. We know exactly what would happen. From morning to night, non-stop news coverage promoting fear-mongering nonsense, pushing the extreme ultra-MAGA conservative narrative. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the mainstream media's constant lies, and they're lying by omission. Everything is narrative driven. It's smoke and mirrors. Police brutality only really matters when it targets one specific identity group. Shooting deaths only matter when it's a white police officer shooting an African American individual. Gang violence, everything else, of course, never makes national headlines. Black life seems seems to only matter when it fits the leftist narrative. Political violence or potential political violence seems to only matter when a Democrat is the target. Even though I can't think of a single example of a Democrat actually being a target of violence. Like I just briefly mentioned, the last time we were talking about this extremist MAGA, ultra MAGA threat targeting Democrat politicians, it was the Paul Gosar anime meme involving Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'll continue to bring up the exact same examples I always do. Leftists want you to believe that the political extremist threat comes from the right, yet they build the whole narrative on a mountain of lies. They constantly lie about January 6th and claim that Capitol police officers were killed by MAGA extremists on the day. Not a single Capitol police officer lost their life on January 6th. They tell you all these mass casualty events are perpetrated by right-wing extremists, Donald Trump supporters, when again it just doesn't happen. Ultra MAGA supporters are chasing down black millionaire athletes at 2 o'clock in the morning in below freezing temperature in Chicago with red MAGA hats claiming this is MAGA country. Give me a break. Meanwhile, Mr. 100% Antifa, like I always say, indiscriminately murdered, assassinated a Patriot Prayer member for nothing else other than just being a conservative. The crime of walking down the street while having voted for Donald Trump. A Bernie Sanders voter, a universal healthcare activist, stormed onto the baseball field during a congressional baseball match and shot Steve Scalise. A young individual was recently arrested outside of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home while having admitted to being there because he wanted to take the justice's life. Political extremism, terrorism, those are the events that constantly come up to mind. That's just in the last couple of years. And now we potentially have another one. Again, we're not going to jump to conclusions. We don't know what happened, but there was a targeted, deadly attack of a Republican councilwoman, a Republican politician in New Jersey, and it's very much possible that this was yet again another act of left-wing terrorism. And this news story follows last week where multiple Antifa individuals were arrested on domestic terrorist charges. It's yet again another classic example of the media double standard, a classic example of narrative versus reality. The FBI tells you that white supremacist violence is the greatest terrorist threat. Joe Biden tells you that ultra MAGA folk are the greatest threat to the homeland. The media promotes the same narrative. But where is this threat? I'm looking around with a magnifying glass. I got my binoculars on. I'm looking for this threat and it doesn't seem to freaking exist. Give me a single example. Yet as I'm looking around, as I'm just living my life and as I'm following these news stories, the actual incidents and threats of violence targeting conservative people seems constant. From a small little thing like a threat on Twitter, a doxing, to rowdy Antifa counter-protests of conservative events, to the countless assaults of people wearing MAGA hats, something that during the 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency just seemed to be normalized at one point. We got desensitized to it, all the way to the vicious assaults and premeditated murders and attempted murders of individuals purely because they stand on the conservative side or may have voted for Donald Trump. And of course, Antifa violence on top of that, just the cherry on top. Mass organized terrorist mob violence. It's constant. It's in our face. We see it every single day. Yet they continue to say that you're the problem. Trump supporters are the problem. It's clown world. And their silence says it all. A New Jersey black Republican congresswoman to play the left-wing identity politics game was just assassinated, and most people don't even know that this story exists. That to me is crazy. The silence speaks volume, and it shows you just how morally bankrupt mainstream leftism really is. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.